because we kind of go around the room and we go through the Zoom too. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Stanislaus Green Team for August. Thank you for coming. A lot of vacations, a lot of things going on in the summer, so we appreciate you coming here and enjoying this presentation. My name is Lyndon Coffey. I'm chairman of the Green Team, Stanislaus County. We come here every third Thursday of the month, and we're booked throughout the year now. So we're good through the year. So put it on your calendar. We don't do December, but every month till December, we're ready to rock and roll. So, yeah, we come here every third Thursday of the month to find out what's going on in the community and listen to what our presenters have to present. If you would like to get on a schedule, please see Jolene or anybody here at the chamber for early next year. We normally go around the room real quick and introduce ourselves. I'll start this way. We'll just do a real quick introduction.
Hi, I'm Mariah. I'm from the City of Modesto Solid Waste Division. Yeah, is that it? Okay.
Perfect. Jolene, real quick.
My name is Jolene. I am the sustainability coordinator here at the chamber.
And if you have any questions about what goes on here, Jolene is your person for that. Contact her. Raj, go ahead.
Raj Narayan, I'm with Frito-Lay, is the EHS coordinator.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Cindy Woodruff, and I work for operations, and I'm also support safety at the plant, and I'm the sustainability champion for Blue Diamond and Turlock.
Perfect. But both Frito-Lay and Blue Diamond have been certified in the past, so we appreciate that. George, as George.
Yeah, good afternoon. George Isaac, I'm director of sales for Repstor manufacturer.
Fantastic. All right. As I say every month, make sure you tell a friend about these meetings. We'd like as many people to come as possible. If you can't come in person, we usually have a pretty good attendance through Zoom as well. We call them hybrid meetings. A quick reminder about your phones. I just shut mine off as well, just to make sure they don't, as mine usually does, go off and beep during our presentation. So I'm going to get right to our speaker. Tom Helm is the co-founder of VIP, which is Valley Improvement Projects. Please welcome Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I guess you have. Well, there's a. I was going to bring up the flyer for the event, but it actually says the dates on one of the slides.
Can we pull it up?
Okay. Is it? Can you zoom out a little bit? I think the whole side of there. It's like it's not showing the whole thing. Yeah, like
Yep.
because it's we had to email the PDF, so it's not the PowerPoint version. But as much as you can get one slide to fit on the screen, that would be the best. That's good right there. So so this is a presentation that is about the concept of zero waste. Well, just to, I guess, introduce myself a little bit more, my name is Tom Helm. I'm the co-founder of Valley Improvement Projects. We were started about 10 years ago, about 2012, but we became a fiscally sponsored nonprofit in 2013. And we consider ourselves an environmental justice organization. And if you're not familiar with that concept, it's basically based on the fact that if you look at historically, poorer communities and communities of color are most likely to have more of a pollution burden in their communities and the places they live. So what we try to do is look at situations like that, not only try to rectify the harms of the past, but when planning and moving towards the future, we try to make sure to say, hey, let's try not to do that anymore, right? Let's all share, we all share the benefits of the pollution, like our cell phones, you know, they cause pollution when we make cell phones, but we all get to have one. So we're saying we all get to have one, we should all share in the burden of pollution as much as possible, right? So one thing that from our starting, from our founding that we were started around was the idea that in Stanislaus County, at the time we had one of only 3 waste incinerators in the whole state of California. There's only 2 now. The one in Commerce down by LA was closed. There's still one in Long Beach and the one here. And we didn't think that burning waste at an incinerator was a sustainable way to do it, especially where it is, and the people that live around the area of the incinerator are mostly Latino communities, people of color, mostly low income. And way back in the 80s, California, they actually commissioned this group, which back then in the 80s, they let a lot of stuff slide, and they came out and said right in their report that if you wanted to cite something like a trash incinerator, that's where you should put it, because people are least likely to complain about it and to have kind of the political influence that other communities might have to say, well, hey, let's look at all of the repercussions of having this here, that kind of thing. I'm sure you've heard of that concept before about, certain communities kind of banding together, stopping a project. So a company wants to take it somewhere else where maybe they're not going to complain or they're not going to know. So we try to bring attention to stuff like that. So we learned very quickly that what we were saying about the sustainability of something like an incinerator, that it was a very easy argument to make. Well, if we don't have the incinerator, it's all going to go on the landfill. And that's not good either. We're not pro filling up landfills. So we had to come up with kind of a third method to say, well, hey, what we should be doing, whether you want the incinerator or not, or think it's good or bad, we still should be cutting down our waste as much as possible. That's going to be good for the whole, globe, not just our local community. But we thought that we were in a unique position to kind of push that idea forward to say, yeah, look, we don't think the incinerator is necessarily a positive thing. We definitely don't want to just be filling up landfills and putting methane in the atmosphere, which also, exacerbates climate change. So what we should be doing is just advocating for producing less stuff that's going to just get thrown right in the trash, using less stuff that's going to just get thrown right in the trash, and actually investing in infrastructure for the things that make it easier to reuse stuff and to not just throw it away. One good example, just having a water cooler in your room, right? Like instead of having plastic water bottles, and I feel a little embarrassed because I didn't bring my reusable water bottle, which I always have on me, but I had a dentist appointment this morning and I was in a hurry to get downtown here and I left my water bottle at home. But it's better than, having a plastic water bottle that you use once and then you'd like to think that it gets recycled, but I think we all know that it doesn't always get recycled, right? So recycling is part of a zero waste plan, but the more we learn about it, the more we learn that it gets into all kinds of things that we hadn't even thought of, right? So we can start going through the slides now. And this was based on a much longer presentation for a whole event that we had about zero waste. So I'm going to be skipping through stuff, and I didn't even host this event, so I've just gone through the slides and know what's on them. But they started off with a land acknowledgement slide, which is basically just acknowledging that there used to be indigenous people on this land, the northern Yokuts, which have almost been completely decimated. And so you can move on to the next one. Like I said, the next event is coming up on August 28th. We've had 2 so far and a plan to have 4 events, which is just to really get input from community members. What do you think about the waste that you use? Is it because of convenience? Is it because of certain types of products that you use? Do you personally try to recycle, or do you live in a place that has a blue bin or not? Because I know it's kind of different throughout the county. I live in Riverbank right now. We just have 2 bins. And I was living in downtown Modesto actually until a couple of years ago, before they got the blue bin. So we only had 2 bins back then too. So I would try to do all the recycling myself, but we know that if stuff just gets thrown in the trash, it's either going to the landfill or being burnt at the incinerator. And I know especially when you're burning recyclable material instead of recycling it, that means more raw materials need to be created, which is also causes pollution, greenhouse gases, all that kind of stuff. You can go to the next one. You can skip this because we're not going to have a meeting that long about it. So yeah, this is just to say that we don't want it in the landfill. We also don't think that creating dioxins and particulate matter and NOx in the air like the incinerator does is also a sustainable method. So that's what zero waste means to us. And We just say that because we know we've heard that, well, actually an incinerator is a way to get to zero waste because you're burning it and you're not putting it in a landfill. But what we see, what that does is it kind of incentivizes the creating of waste, right? Because the incinerator, they make their money off of producing energy by burning the waste and selling that energy on the open market. And if you're saying we're going to take away your stream of waste that you make money off of, there's not going to be any motivation to do that, right? Because they want to keep the waste coming. So we don't see it as a sustainable option. So we just want to talk about things that we see as sustainable. And we can keep going through the slides here. Keep going. So this is just about the incinerator. We worked with a group called Earth Justice on a whole report about the last two incinerators in California, about the kind of pollution that they create, the areas that they're in, things like that. You can keep going. It's a very long report. I'd be happy to get it to anybody that wants to read more, but we don't have time to go through all the ins and outs of that. Another thing that we learned, which kind of added to our argument that, hey, maybe having an incinerator is disincentivizing other waste practices. So back in the 1970s, a nonprofit actually started the first voluntary curbside recycling pickup program in the whole country, Modesto, California. It was a nonprofit group. They wanted to see stuff get recycled. So it wasn't through the city at first. They would just come by your house, and if they had an agreement with the resident, and they would just come by their house and pick up their stuff and take it to recycling, and then they would keep the CRV money for the nonprofit. And I can tell you from experience running a nonprofit, it's tough, and I think that's what happened to them. And they kind of fizzed out, but that's when Modesto started taking over the curbside recycling program way back then. But it's pretty amazing to know that Modesto, first one in the country, is very specific. It had to be like a voluntary, weekly, but it was the first in the nation of all those categories. You can keep going. There was a campaign to bring waste from the Bay Area, medical waste from the Bay Area. This was before Valley Improvement Project started, but some of the folks that helped start Valley Improvement Projects were around back then, and they actually fought bringing more waste from out of the area, because it's one thing to say, hey, we're taking care of our own trash here, right? But if you're sending waste from other areas, burning it here, and we get the pollution from it, that seems a little unfair. That seems like an environmental injustice, right? So back then, folks actually fought against that and stopped it. They decided to not make that deal where they're going to bring in and burn medical waste from outside of the area. And there's a video about it, but we don't have time for that as well. So we'll keep going. This is just some numbers about how much of the waste goes to landfill, how much goes to the incinerator. It's about half and half. There still is some that comes from outside of the area. It's maybe, it's less than 10%, obviously, but it's still, some corporations like to send stuff to incinerators so that there's no video out there of their stuff in a landfill. Amazon, for example, they don't like to see Amazon packaging in videos from landfills, so they send it to incinerators. Other companies like, I think Subaru and American Airlines, I think it is, they're other two big users of sending their stuff to incinerators. It's really just kind of an optics thing. It doesn't necessarily have to do with, them not wanting to put stuff in a landfill. But okay, we can keep moving. I know this is going to be the fast version. We talked about, methane coming from landfills. That's something we want to avoid, right? So we're really trying to focus on this third option of just cutting down our waste as much as possible. And I know it's called zero waste, and we say that and be like, oh, come on, you never get to zero waste. But the point is to try as much as we possibly can. I was listening to the radio on the way here, and they have those advertisements in California that say 0 litter. Our goal is to get to 0 litter. And my first thought was, oh, come on, you're never going to get rid of all the litter, right? But so that's kind of what we're saying. It's like, yeah, we know we're going to have some waste, but we can try as much as we can to get rid of, like single-use plastics. I think is about a third of all the plastics that get made. So imagine we cut out a third of all the plastics that is getting, thrown away every year. That we could start with just that single-use stuff. So and then the next slide, it's like, yeah, there is no way. It's here. It's going to be somewhere, even if you're incinerating it and it gets into the air. Dioxin is a toxic. It will eventually come down and it will be in the soil. So you got to imagine for 40 years they've been burning stuff. That dioxin's going out. It's landing in the soil. You can keep going on the slides. Keep going. This is just basic stuff about, the waste problem, recycling. Okay, so zero waste. So what does that look like as far as, implementing it into a city or a county, right? There's going to be certain, there's already is laws that I'm sure you're, familiar with, like SB 1383, which is trying to tackle the organic waste issue and keep that stuff out of landfills because that's what's causing most of the methanes. And so new opportunities are going to arise for there to be new jobs through some of these either government programs or programs or new markets that are going to have to get started because of new laws. And it's been looked at studies that actually a zero waste strategy could create up to 200 times more jobs than the traditional either waste haulers or even incinerators, which, like I said, there's only 2 in California. I think they both employ around 30 or 40 people. So, not a ton of jobs, but waste hauling, that's obviously a big field where you have jobs. So what are some of these jobs going to be? Repairing. There is a right to repair bill in California that's going to make it so that products have to be easier to fix so that they're not just thrown away and you go buy another one. There is going to be the need for infrastructure, like having, if it's not just, if it's a water cooler, but also like water bottle filling stations. Imagine like at all the elementary schools, junior highs, high schools. I used to substitute teach for a while at a high school, and I can tell you that the trash cans will be full of plastic bottles and cans, and they didn't have any recycling there. I won't say what school it is. And so I would just watch this stuff just be getting thrown away. And yeah, I was just imagining, if we could just start with high schools and cut out all of the single-use plastics that get thrown away at the high school. So repairing stuff, recycling obviously is going to be a big part of it. Composting. There's a whole list that can go into a zero waste plan. We don't have time to go over all of it, but we can keep going down the presentation. This is just a hierarchy of what California and Cal Recycle likes to look at. What's the best thing to do with the waste, and then all the way down to the worst. So the worst being throwing it in a landfill or incinerating it. Reducing the amount of packaging that's created, packaging that's plastic, that's not biodegradable. So reducing the things we use, redesigning the things that we use so that they're more recyclable material. I was actually just appointed to that new committee that Cal Recycle started because of SB 54. The plastics manufacturer is going to have to make that material out of more recyclable material. They're going to have to recycle more of it. So I was appointed as the environmental justice seat for the advisory committee that's going to look at all those plans and say, what's missing, what can be done better, what should we do more of, that kind of thing. So I'll be getting to look at all of those plans and be able to give some input on it. We can keep going. The reuse, we kind of touched on already. Habitat for Humanity is a perfect model of that. All kinds of stuff in homes that you would think of, well, you're not going to take out a cabinet and resell it. You take that out and you throw it away. And you actually could, and there's people that would be willing to buy it for lesser price because it's used, right? So we started thinking about everything that can be refurbished, fixed, repaired. There's a place in Monterey where they actually have a site where you would go drop off your stuff at the landfill, and they pull, chairs out of there, and they might reupholster them, fix them up, and then they have a little store that they sell it, and the money goes to the county because the county runs it all. So that's just another idea. You can keep going up. Recycling and composting, I'm sure we all know what goes into that. But also not just, big scale commercial composting, which we do need and we need more of in California, but we do trainings, for example, on folks that if they're lucky enough to have at least like a little backyard, you could do your own backyard composting. I love to do that. Me personally, I would always have a backyard compost, and then I would mix it into the soil when we would start our garden every year. After a few years, you start getting that real rich, dark compost. I would love that stuff. I know it kind of stinks, but I would just like being out there in the garden. And you can keep going. This is an example of a resource recovery park. I'm not sure if this is the one in Monterey. I don't think it is.
That's the one in Elster.
Oh, okay, this is a different one. But yeah, this is the same kind of thing. So they're separating resources and then figuring out, what can they be recycled, can they be reused, can they be fixed, stuff like that. You can keep going. So this is example of some of like the workshops that like we're putting on, where we get people's idea of how they envision cutting down either their waste personally or the whole city that they live in or county. What does that look like? What kind of infrastructure would you like to see? What kind of, what's in your waste stream? What's the biggest part of the waste stream that we need to look at, right? And we're working with Zero Waste USA, which is a national organization that helps out smaller organizations like us strategize and look at what other cities have done or are doing. So this is just a picture of community members getting together, looking at what their vision for redesigning and repurposing and refurbishing and all that kind of stuff. We keep going. That's just more of that. You can keep going. Keep going. This is more different examples. I think that one was in Berkeley. You can keep going. This is just kind of like the positive outputs. These are some examples of other groups that we have worked with, like another group, environmental justice group that's in Long Beach that we've worked together on the incinerator issue. They've gone to cities and had them come up with a plan to sit down with groups and community members and actually make an official zero waste plan that then hopefully the city or the county would adopt as a goal. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a concrete promise, like we are going to do this by next year. It's just, these are our values. This is what we're looking to do. This is what we want it to look like. And then hopefully the next step would be start on some of those concrete things. We want to get rid of single-use plastics or like food containers or something like that. Another thing that we've done over the years is actually advocated some of this stuff to the Earth Day event. But when we started tabling at the Earth Day event, we noticed a lot of gas generators going throughout the park. We kind of thought that didn't really fit into the day. We saw a lot of places giving out stuff that were like single-use, plastic wrappers. We didn't see a lot of recycling centers, so we kind of made a list and gave it to the city, and they've done a lot of the things that we've asked for actually over the years. Another thing is we asked for them to not have the incinerator be a sponsor. That's a different story, but so along the same lines, like like at an event, we would want to pitch something like that to the whole city and the whole county. You can keep going. So that was Los Angeles's, that's Long Beach. Other cities have done this. Other cities, I know we're not San Francisco, but the city of San Francisco, just for example, they have like a 90% waste diversion rate for their waste. So it's either getting recycled, composted, or they're figuring out other things to do with it, so that only 10% is going into a landfill at the end of the day. We can keep going up. We had a breakout session during the other meeting. Like I said, it was a lot longer. And that's when we would ask the community members that came to the event. So start sharing your ideas for what zero waste means to you. What does it look like? What ideas do you have? What things maybe have you seen in other cities? Things like that. You can keep going. I think this is pretty much the end. This is just the let them know. So you know too, you're all welcome to come. The next meeting is on August 28th. They're at the North Valley Labor Federation building on 7th Street. I don't have the exact address, but I can look it up, and I have business cards if you want to. Oh, they're in my pocket. I have business cards if you want to get in touch and talk about any of this stuff. We love what Frito-Lay is doing, for example. I also sit on the Environmental Justice Advisory Group for the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, and we just had a great presentation on what Lay's is doing with their trucks and their solar panels. That's, might not be exactly zero waste, but it's sustainability, and whatever we can do to help, especially small businesses out, find out what grants are available, what things, you can implement pretty easily. We'll meet and talk to folks about that kind of stuff too. And then our final one will be in September. And then we hope to, once we've kind of gotten all that community input, we hope to, and we've already started meetings. We've met with, city council folks and board of supervisors folks, and, gauging folks' interest in pursuing something like this, which hopefully grows, as we get the word out about it more. I think that's pretty much it. I might have our contact information.
Perfect.
And Zero Waste USA, which is helping us with all of this. And that's pretty much it. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can, but that's pretty much the gist of it.
That's great. Anybody have any questions during this? I know that as a recycler, our biggest challenge is like some of our food processing accounts. Cheese being one of them but I know maybe the almonds and the chips of the world. Not all plastics are recyclable because they have that barrier. Do you see any progress in that realm?
Well, I think SB 54 is trying to tackle that issue to make sure, because it has the numbers on there, but really if it's not number 1 or maybe a number 2, it's really hard to recycle. So it's recyclable, or what I've heard the term wish cycling. You put it in your recycling bin and you wish it gets recycled. And so I think that's what they're trying to tackle.
Which makes a nightmare for companies like me. Then you have to sort what is and what isn't.
Exactly. So I know, and I still have a lot to learn. I was just notified that I was appointed to this committee, so I'm going to be learning a lot more about it. But from what I know, that's what they're trying to do with it, is to make that recyclable product more recyclable.
Sure.
Like it's going to actually get recycled, not just be called recyclable. And I know the plastic, producers have to make their material easier to recycle. It needs to include more recycled plastic in it. Right. But
it is food too, so you don't want the food to spoil. So that right now there's not a perfect world where you can make it recyclable.
It's hard for us too, because we like pick up the photo and say, what the heck do we do with this?
Right.
Where does it go?
You have to make sure that your product is going to stay safe and on the shelf. But on my end, it's like, it's got too many layers in it. I can't just put it in with the rest of the recycling world. So it's tough.
And this is the exact kind of input that we want to hear, right? Which products work, which don't. Yeah. Is it, because of just the type of plastic, or is it because of what's in it?
Right.
All of that kind of stuff we want to learn more about, so we can get a full picture. We're still doing kind of the study aspect where we're looking at, what is what makes up the trash in Stanislaus County?
Right.
Is there one thing in particular that we can look at that we can cut down, really fast with, when other things are going to be more complicated and take more time?
Sure.
Where can we get, incentives and other programs that the state or the federal government might have for businesses? We want to bring it here. We want to bring it to our community, and we feel like we're kind of in this position with the incinerator. We feel like we've been relying on it, so no one's been kind of thinking about this.
It's the catch-all.
Why do we want to bring down our waste? Like, what's the incinerator going to do, right? But that should be our end goal, is to cut down as much as possible on what we produce and what we throw away.
Is there any questions further? I encourage you to definitely come back. We're here every third Thursday. Definitely check in with us and tell us how that progress is on your committee and all those things, because like I said, this is what we're here for. We want to know about these kind of things. I certainly do with the packaging.
Our goal is to get to zero waste, but how to get there?
Right.
That's the part we struggle with right now.
Exactly.
is
We
like-
like to say
like,
it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
We know it's gonna be a long time, but we gotta start somewhere, right? And especially in the recyclable stuff and the single-use plastics, that kind of seems like well, I don't know if it's low-hanging fruit. It just seems to be kind of common
Next
sense,
step,
like
yeah.
something that's sold that you're meant to use once and throw out.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, on the composting part of the SB 1383 part, in compliance and food, right? Having a food thing and having, recycle bins for compost in the break rooms is
Mhm.
very problematic.
Yeah.
And, we don't want to attract any pests. We have
Yeah.
food, right? And trying to keep things clean and keep things ready. And I've been told in Sherlock that I can't have any of the recyclable plastic in the waste. The paper ones are not working very well for us, and they're expensive.
Yeah.
And then we're throwing all that away too. I just wondered if anybody else had some better ideas or had any other better luck. I guess I'm searching.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have an answer. Do you?
I can only speak for the city of Modesto
Yeah.
in particular. The way that we're handling it is allowing the compostable bags. Have you looked at at them? They are definitely more expensive.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they probably are double or triple the cost of our regular garbage bag.
Yeah.
But it's not so much what you're doing inside, because inside you can use a plastic bag and then when you take it out, you can empty it out. But now your container is gross and you're having to clean that on probably a monthly basis at least. So what?
Around food, we're thinking more like every other day or weekly.
Yeah.
You
So
could take- Yeah, because we don't want to attract anything to the plant.
You can't, right?
one of the options, there are containers that seal, that you can do food waste if you're putting them in break rooms or in common areas. We're not, at our building, we're not a food facility, so it's a
Yeah.
little bit different, but we have had them in our building for 2 years now and had no waste or no like pest issues, very, very minimal smell issues. It's only if somebody skips it basically, and we forget to get it emptied. So I have my card here, I can send you information on the kind of containers we use. You can see if they're
Love
useful.
that.
Because they have a carbon filter on them that helps odors, and then they pretty much seal it to the point where nothing can get in or out of them.
Because we're right now, the one in the break room, we're dumping every shift. So we run 24 hours a day. So we're talking very intensive labor, and then it's cleaned every shift as well. So like, what are we using with soap and water, and what else are we putting down the drain? We worry about those kind of
Yeah,
things, so yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm not running a business, but at my house, I've started saving up like big coffee containers. I use those for the compost inside the house, and then outside I have the 5-gallon buckets with lids, and I fill up those, and then on trash day, I throw a couple of cardboard boxes in the bottom and dump the buckets in there, and it gets taken out that day. And then, I just rinse the buckets out with water, because then I put the lids back on. But that's a very small scale,
Yeah.
family of 5 in one home, so not trying to
I have
equate
cheese
it, but
coffee can at home too.
yeah, they're perfect for that. But, and then another thing that I kind of jokingly, even though I'm kind of serious, I tell people, they say, well, I'm gonna have to do this, I'm gonna do this. I'm like, with the effects of climate change, you're gonna have more to worry about if we don't start tackling some of these issues in the future. Your stinky compost bin is gonna be the least of your worries, or your kids or grandkids' worries, in 50 years.
Appreciate the
Oh,
presentation.
right on time. All right. And cards, if you want to talk more, we'd love to hear your ideas, especially from businesses. We, as environmental justice, we don't want small businesses and, lower income folks having to be the ones to share this burden as well, right? So we want to learn, like, especially from small businesses, what their challenges are, what doesn't work for them, so we can learn, and we'll go easy on the bigger businesses, but it's gotta even out somehow. So
In Sherlock, we're only like 165 people on 3 shifts, so we are pretty small,
And
even though Blue Diamond is bigger.
yeah,
Right, right.
and we appreciate,
Yeah.
what you are doing already, because that's gonna make it easier to pitch it to other businesses when you have a, working model. And more examples, the better, sure.
Well, honestly, this is what we envisioned when we started these green team meetings way back when. The fact that we put on a presentation, thank you very much. And then you have feedback and dialogue amongst our attendees. So this is kind of like the blueprint of what we envisioned. And I will encourage this, and I know I'll speak for the chamber as well. We want more people to hear this. We are taping it, and we'll go up on our website. But I've always been a champion of get butts in the seat, so to speak. So the more people hear it, the better, and more dialogue.
We
So
will definitely share the video.
I appreciate it. And remember us here, we're here every month, third Thursday of the month. So we want to encourage everybody to come back either in person or through. Do we get a participant? No. This is us right here. It's okay. I want to make sure I'm not skipping it.
I had issues with the Zoom link,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah.
All
My
right.
apologies.
We'll work on that. No worries.
We'll have to wait for this.
I should say next month, September 21st is our meeting here. It's Jean Floretta, and she's with Stan Cog and Stanis Cruz, right? All right, so that'll be our September meeting. Before we adjourn, we're gonna get you out of here. I know I have to actually run as fast as I can, but we usually open it to the floor real quick if anybody has an announcement about anything. Could be related to this, could be totally off topic, so to speak. Any announcements anybody's wanting to announce, go for it.
I don't know if we have any City of Modesto residents, but we've had some waste changes since our last meeting.
Okay.
So does anybody live in Modesto? I won't address it.
All right,
Right.
there we go.
So your green bin is picked up weekly now, which we hope is working better for people.
God,
We had a lot of
I
concerns
wish
about
mine-
it,
Thank
and we internally were concerned about it as well, so we're glad to fix that.
Good.
And then now we have the bi-weekly for recycling, but we continue to ask for feedback from it. We're in the first year of that program, so if you have feedback, if your neighbors have feedback, anything that we can take from people, we want to make sure it's working.
Perfect. That's
Thank
great. I wish that was like that at my house. I want green waste every week.
Yeah, we're bank.
I've been
Pick ours up
Placer County.
Yeah.
Every
A
other
little
weekend.
different story.
We don't have
yeah.
recycling, we just have the trash and the green bin.
Borrowing neighbors' cans. I don't want to keep anybody. If anybody's got nothing else to say, we're gonna let it go and say thank you for attending. We appreciate your attendance. Remember us next month and have a good month. We'll be officially, I think, in fall next time. That might be the first day of fall. So.
We can
Can't
still
wait
be
till
under
fall.
green.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.